Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stew again, and this time we're going to try something new. We'll be taking a look at the encounter with bigsurf77 accompanied with some Q&A with the creator. The Q&A included in the video is for the encounter only. The full Q&A is in the description or can be found at the Dream subreddit link in the description. Let's get started. The encounter starts with a short cinematic which allows the player to retain camera control but does not allow them to move. This is a setting in the controller sensor. There is a brief title sequence, and player control is restored once the lift reaches the bottom floor. We proceed into a large, visually complex room. However, if you inspect this room a little more closely, you will see that it is made up mostly of about 10 or 12 different sculpts repeated in various ways. This is one effective approach to managing thermal while maintaining visual quality. At the same time, repeating a limited set of props creates a unified feeling in the environment. Nothing feels out of place because visual cues of each element are repeated throughout the space. Another thing that helps reinforce this is a unified color scheme, in this case several grayscale values in orange. The scene also utilizes light-emitting glow for secondary illumination and emphasis. One thing I want to point out here is the fleck detail. It's fairly loose like we just read in the Q&A. This is not some special version of Dreams. It is simply a well-made scene by a skilled creator. With some effort and enough time and a little talent, almost anyone can make something that looks like this. But you can see, even for someone of obvious skill, it will take some time. If we do a little math, 9 or 10 hours a day for at least a week means bigsurf77 probably spent 70 hours or so on this. That seems reasonable for an environment this large and detailed with an entire scripted sequence. What I'm looking at here again is repetition of sculpts in various places to take up space and add detail. Also, notice that a lot of detail is built into the sculpts rather than relying on a bunch of sculpts for detail. This conserves gameplay thermo in exchange for graphics thermo. If you remember back to the question, there's plenty of graphics thermo headroom and not a lot of gameplay, so this is a trade-off that is well worth it. And remember all of these sculpts because it won't be the last area where you see them. We head up the stairs through the doorway and meet our helpful little robot assistant. By the way, when bigsurf77 is referring to looseness in this answer, I think they're actually talking about sculpture detail. Looseness is a sculpture setting that changes the size of the flecks that cover the sculpt volume. Changing that doesn't generally affect thermo. Changing sculpture detail with the sculpture detail tool will affect the thermo. Some people call this looseness out of habit. One of the things that really impressed me about this scene was the attention to detail on the robot. Not only is the sculpt itself quite detailed, but the various animations extend all the way to finger movement. Checking out various environmental aspects of the scene. Another way detail is built into the scene is by utilizing clusters of these crates and also various tubes and conduits of unknown purpose, which is of course a sci-fi staple. That is illustrated nicely in this corridor. Here I'm going to take a closer look at one of the crates. They look great and are of deceptively simple construction. This is a cube. Each of the corners is cut off with the pyramid tool. Each face has a portion of a cube cut out of it, and then a couple of crossways rectangular cubes doing the same thing. There are various smaller notches cut out, but that's basically it. These probably didn't even take that long to make. One thing you'll notice in this portion of the room is that a lot of these props look familiar from the room we started in. While each sculpt copy costs a small amount of gameplay thermo, it doesn't cost any extra graphics thermo. With a sculpt overhead of about 10,000, you can make a lot of copies. In this room you can see what I'm talking about as far as clusters of these crates goes. There is a big empty space to fill in this area. Make a few copies of a crate and arrange them in different ways. Now you have visual interest instead of just a wall. Now that we've been walking around a bit, things should be looking fairly familiar. You can see that the scene really is made up of about 50 different sculpts. Nearly every sculpt in this room is one we've seen before. Let's head into the control room to check out the scripted event that occurs in there. You can see from the control panel glow and as well as the star outside that bloom is turned up in a grade and effect gadget. Right here the robot turns off all the visible lights and glow in the scene. The easiest way to do that would be with a wireless transmitter and wireless receivers on each of the receiving sculpts. You can probably also do it with tags. Something like this is better to plan ahead of time. That way you can lay it down once and then copy it instead of bothering with hooking up a bunch of copies after the fact. And then reverse that simply by cutting off the wireless signal. Let's wrap things up by taking a look in the hangar area, which is the largest, most impressive one in this scene. You've probably seen this before as it has been featured extensively in Dreams media so far. Other than the dropped ship, I think it's safe to say we've seen each of these sculpts at this point. This scalability through cloning is the power of Dreams. And keep in mind, this is one of the first things this creator has made in Dreams. Imagine the results when they have enough time with Dreams to get comfortable. Speaking of scalability, check out the size of that moon outside. Things can be scaled up massively, large enough to create a convincing moon. That about wraps up the tour. I've told bigsurf77 this, and I'll say it to anyone listening. I think this scene is the most visually impressive thing to come out of the beta, other than John Beach's pool room. I can't wait to see what comes next, and also to continue to be inspired by great creations like this. Spring is almost here. You can see from this scene and also by reading the creators' comments that this is a great tool and it is destined for great things. We need back in like yesterday. I have another Q&A session with Beavis2 covering my recent video about their beta content coming up. Hopefully early access is available once I'm done with that, and I'll see you in Dreams when I see you next time.